Welcome to PLZ Soccer's football show with me, Peter Martin, Alan Ruff, and I'm delighted to say our special guest today is former Rangers player David McKinnon. Lots to talk about with Davy, not only football issues that are ongoing at the moment, what he's up to, but of course we will get Davy's thoughts on the sad news yesterday on the passing of Ali Dawson, a former teammate of Davy's at Rangers. 12 years he spent there, and I have to say, Ruffy, that the story broke yesterday just as we were coming off air, and we know Ali, we've had him on the show more than a few occasions. I was lucky enough to actually sit down and do a great one-to-one with him on his career, which is going out on our channel at 7 o'clock tonight. Tragic news. It
was tragic, you know, for it to happen the way it did. Obviously we hadn't contact with him for a wee while. We'd still a lot of stuff on Facebook with his family, and he was travelling about and doing all that, but for me, we all know what he did in football, but I think a bigger part of his life was street soccer. The chance he gave to homeless people, you know, to get their life back in order, and he devoted himself to it. You know, it was 24 hours, and anybody who was part of that will know what he did for these people.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about a legacy, I know you had him as a teammate, but when you think about a legacy of what someone has left behind, I think a lot of people will look to street soccer, Davy.
Well, I think, you know, I know exactly what he did behind the scenes with that, and him and David Duke. David Duke has said some, you know, really nice things about Ali, and they're all true and accurate. Ali was, you know, unassuming, didn't want to take any credit, but he put a significant amount of work into that, and he had a real passion for it. And, you know, that's the man, and it wasn't a surprise to me that he put as much passion and desire into it as he did for his football career. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, street soccer itself, I mean, that's how he would lift the phone and say, look, I've got something to promote on it. I want to, you know, get it on. We'd like, come on in, Ali, and we'll talk about it, we'll promote it, whatever it is. Of course, the greatest achievement in the street soccer, I'm going to talk about his Rangers career with Davy in a minute, Ruffy, but at street soccer, to manage Scotland to a World Cup and to win it against Mexico, you know, was just fantastic at the Homeless World Cup.
Yeah, and we were privileged enough to go along to see the team selection, you know, the guys that were all trying to get into the team, and the smile on their face was absolutely amazing. It was as if they'd been given a new chance in life, you know, and a lot of them told their story of where they were, quite honest. You know, they were down and out, they had nowhere to go, and the street soccer brought them back into some kind of civilization and gave them a target or an ambition, you know, to go for. And I'm sure if you met a lot of these guys now that come through the street soccer, they will be working in business, they will be getting their life back in order. And I think Ali has to take all the pats in the back for that.
Yeah, I mean, I love the fact that you absolutely nailed exactly what he was like as a person, because the first thing that struck me for a guy who'd been capped for Scotland 5 times, played 12 years at Rangers, was humility. He was a very humble guy. He was passionate about street soccer and the project, but what was he like as a teammate?
It was incredible. I knew Ali since I think he was 12 and I was about 13. And he came from Elderslie, you know, near Johnson, and both of us played in the Paisley District School Select team. And I think my mother had a photograph, she sadly died, but she's got a photograph somewhere that I'll need to look out, and it's a picture of us at Paisley Gilmer Street, getting on the train to go and play Glasgow Schools at Rosebery Park, and Ali's in it and I'm in it, and happy times. And we kept in touch. I went down to Arsenal, as you know, for a number of years, but when I came back up and I, you know, joined Dundee, and then, you know, the extravagance of playing at Thistle with my friends here, you know, Ali and I had a great relationship. But when I went to Rangers, to be perfectly honest, you know, the friendship was re-established, and a guy you could rely on both on and off the park. But, you know, he had a kind of real dry sense of humour. And he used to wind you up something awful, and you would think, have I upset you, Ali, for some reason? And then you get that wee laugh, and you knew that he'd hooked you. But, you know, lovely man, and, you know, obviously as a teammate, you know, he was someone that you could really rely on, and a great addition to any dressing room.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, he was signed with Jock Wallace And of course, he had John Gregg as the manager. Latterly, he'd Souness just as he was starting that whole change in Rangers' fortunes, the Graham Souness era. But you know, 2 Scottish Cups, 4 League Cups, Ruffy. I think the one thing that maybe irks him, and Davey will be able to talk at this as well, is maybe just if he hung on for another year, he'd have got a league medal with Souness.
Yeah, but I mean, you're going way back then, you know, and he was a regular member of the team, and I'm sure Rangers supporters out there will appreciate the amount of years that he was there. And as Davey said, he was unassuming, you know, even on the park, you know, he wasn't like a standout star, you know, he just went and did his job, and he did it very, very well, and that's why the Rangers supporters liked him. Yeah,
I mean, it's in a strange sort of way. I'm not saying he's the same player as him, but he's one of those players that I always likened to, even when I was chatting to Ali about football. He was one of those players like a Sasa Papic. It's like an 8 out of 10 every week.
Well, that's it, exactly. And, you know, when I went to Rangers, I'd probably the best 6 months of my career where I was playing out my skin. We beat Dortmund, you know, and you just know when you're playing well. And I was right back, and I was a permanent right back. And then I get injured against Aberdeen. I'd got an 8 out of 10 against Aberdeen, but done my ankle in. And was out for 6 weeks. And Ali, strangely, as a right footer, had been playing left back all his career.
Yeah.
So they moved him across to right back, and I had to acknowledge he was a better right back than me. And I said to him, look, I said, I'm never going to dislodge you for this position, because it was his position. It became, and in such a short time. I was, you know, they were talking to me about I would be playing for Scotland, the home internationals, and then Ali ended up playing because he was such a good. But what he did, he said to me, he said, look, opportunity, keep it going. So I came back into the team at right back, left back, centre half, every position. I then became the utility man, which is, you know, quite a thing around your neck. But I couldn't have wished for a better person to take my position in the team, because, you know, lovely, lovely guy. And just, you know, just so sad.
Yeah, absolutely. 63 is way too young. And of course, the first thing that you think about when a guy who spent 12 years there, you're not a bad player when you spend 12 years at Rangers. And I think a lot of people look back with great fondness, certainly the Rangers supporters. This is what Ali had to say when I was chatting to him about how he would like to be remembered over those 12 years at Rangers.
I've always felt I've been lucky, and now probably more in the lifestyle I've got at this moment in time, the job that I've got. I've been very, very fortunate. Worked with a number of people who have had difficulty in their life, but I just feel I've been very, very fortunate. People remember me. I've still get along to the odd game every now and again, and 1 or 2 remember and get photographs, and I think that in itself tells me something that hopefully I've had a thought or a memory in somebody's mind at the time for them to come up and at least want a photograph or an autograph, and if that continues, then I'll be a happy, happy man.
Listen, the amount of Rangers fans that would have asked him for a photograph, Ruffy, on the 12 years that he spent there, but it just shows you, sums it up there. He was a lucky, you know, lucky. I always like people I'd rather be lucky than good, but he was lucky and good.
I wouldn't say he was lucky. He might have thought he was lucky, but he was a decent football player, and you don't get playing with Rangers for 10, 12 years as being a lucky football player. You get there because you're the best player available, and that's why you get picked week in, week out. And I'd love to know how many games he played, because I think it would be an
over
awful
300.
lot. Yeah, I think it would have been a lot more than a lot of would-be Rangers fans say, oh, there was better players than him. They wouldn't have played 300 games for Rangers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember him, you know, with great fondness, and I think he'll be sadly missed by a lot of people, never mind street soccer, but of course he got 5 caps under Jock Stein as well, which is, you know, absolutely magnificent. Hamilton have paid tribute to him as well this morning, just on the basis that Ali went on to become a manager of Hamilton Accies and got them out of the 3rd division as it was then. They won the title, so great fondness there. Blackburn Rovers have acknowledged when he left Rangers, he moved to Blackburn Rovers. He had a time at Limerick and Airdrie as well. And as you mentioned there, David Duke just highlighted the qualities that he had to help start Street Soccer Scotland. And of course, the other thing about it, I think a lot of teammates, Davey, will look back now and just think of those those wee moments that they maybe spent together?
Well, absolutely. I've had quite a few of them, but one of the things that I forget what year it was. It was obviously between 82 and 86 when I was there, and E.T. was a big thing, right? And you had to wait till it came to the cinema, but between the two of us, we managed to get a copy on video. So we were playing the Saturday, and I was saying to Ali, I said, I get a copy of E.T. He said, "You're joking?" I said, "No." He said, "Right." He said, "I'll come round to yours tonight." So he came to my house. I prepared him a wonderful tea, of course. And we sat and we watched E.T. Just me and him. Really? Two hard Rangers fullbacks watching E.T. And the twos were bubbling at the end, because it was... And we said that was great. We'll not tell anybody, but good memories like that, that of things that he did, and just magnificent. And but I tell you this, mild-mannered off the park, on the park, hard as nails. I remember we played Inter Milan at Ibrox, and a wee winger was playing for Inter Milan. We beat them 3-1, and he kept diving. Every time Ali went near him, he was diving, and he said to me half time, "I'm going to sort this guy out." And I said, "All right." I said, "But just watch yourself." So anyway, so the guy's been diving, referee's over him, and next thing, they're running out of defence. It's on YouTube, and the guy's running with him, and Ali just goes like that, boof, knocks him out, and the referee comes up, and the guy's rolling about, and he books him for diving. And Ali went, "You're quite right, referee." And that's me and him were laughing about it, and but hard as nails on the park, and a guy that gave you 100%, but a guy that you could rely on. That's a big thing,
Hard as nails. I just getting back to that photograph you showed. What a back four that was! Tam Forsyth and Gregor Stevens. Was.
That's it.
You wouldn't need to worry about anybody bossing you for about.
But the other thing is what they used to do, and this was the strange thing. See, if you got the ball and you're back to them, they used to make noises like wild animals, right? And you used to go because you knew you were going to get it, But it was great memories, and I think that the guys in the 80s team, we've got a WhatsApp group. And we're communicating a lot about it, but I'd the honour of Ali's daughter Holly texting me the other night and saying that he wasn't going to make it, so that was a bit difficult. Coisty and I had contacted him a few weeks ago, and we were going to go and see him, but that wasn't possible because he ended up going into the hospice and that. So that was sad, but we're good memories of him. And one thing I'd like to say is that his family, he was so devoted to his family, his wife and his two daughters, and they gave him unbelievable support. So, it must have been the most difficult times for them, but the support they gave him great strength, because I spoke to him probably 4 weeks ago, and that was one of the things he said, but typical Ali, I'm going to fight, and that's what he probably did. So, but they take great credit, his family, and he took great solace in what they did support them. So that was an absolutely magnificent thing.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because for us, I thought he was a gentleman. Many Rangers fans will have fantastic memories of games that he played in, and thanks to Davey for sharing a few of the memories. E.T. as well. If you want to get Ali's thoughts on it, I was very lucky. Sometimes actually when you're growing up and you know players that you're watching week in, week out, players that have played for all the Scottish clubs, and you know a player and you think to yourself, you're lucky enough to get him into the studio to talk about it. That was one of those occasions I wanted to get Ali in. He wants to talk about street soccer, and I said, look, you've got to promise me a 1-to-1 and we'll do your career as well. So tonight at 7 o'clock on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel, Ali talks about his time at Rangers, 12 years, just all about Rangers. And it's Again, I think what you'll get from it is a humble man who was delighted that he was there, as Ruffy said, and I think we all agree, a good player, certainly not a lucky player. He thought he was lucky, but when you look at his contribution to Rangers, he's in the Hall of Fame as well. And he mentions, how he was able to learn off the great Dave Smith, how he got, managers like Jock Wallace, John Gregg, and of course Graham Souness at the time as well. Just to pass on little nuggets here and there and the experience of playing with some wonderful players, and Davey included in that. So I think it's a trip down memory lane. Hopefully you'll enjoy it at 7 o'clock. Anyway, our thoughts and prayers go out from everyone here on the Football Show to Ali Dawson's family and friends at this very sad time. He will be greatly missed, I can tell you, and I know that Street Soccer Scotland and obviously Rangers Football Club will come up with something just in memory of a great lad off the park and of course a great player for Rangers over those 12 years, Ali Dawson. So football, we've got lots to talk about. There's European football on the mind as well of first and foremost tomorrow, Celtic. Davey, we always want the Scottish clubs to do well. We want more than Celtic and Rangers to do well, but suddenly we're in a situation where I think Celtic are on a shaky peg here against Michelin. It's 1-1 from the first leg.
Well, I think it's been difficult, and I think that you always get that with a manager coming in, having to establish a new team and have to gel. There's obviously a lot of players that were established over the years. At Celtic, there's talking about them moving, so that disrupts the place a wee bit. But playing for Rangers and Celtic, you have to hit the ground running, and there's a big expectation. But I think that the transition for Celtic, when Peter Lawwell was leaving, the manager had left, the scouting system had maybe broken down a wee bit. You had to do all that work because it's a bit like pre-season. When you play your first game, if you have a good pre-season, then you're going to do well in your first game. It's the same way behind the scenes. Everybody thinks when the season stops, nothing happens, and but that's when all the hard work's done to bring a team in, get them playing together, get them familiarised with each other and get it on the park. So I think it's going to be difficult for Celtic. I hope they go over it because, as you say, we want Scottish clubs to do as well as they can. Yeah,
it's not ideal preparation. He mentioned after the game last week to me that, it was probably the poorest preparation they had for the game. And over and above that, you've got a situation that's still ongoing at the moment. Griffiths suddenly not travelling, picked up a calf injury. Incidentally, a calf injury that was a recurring theme in his time with Brendan Rodgers, Ruffy.
Yeah, he's a lucky man for where I'm sitting. He's been given chance after chance. This calf injury, aside everything else that's been going on with him, it is reoccurring. And in this day and age, when players are getting contracts, as Davey will tell you, they go through a medical. And if you're giving somebody X amount of pounds and they're not passing that medical, you don't get a contract. You don't even get a transfer. So he's very lucky because the medical team must have had a look at his calf and said there must be a record of the reoccurrence of it. And to get another year's contract, he's done well out of that. So I think we all agree he's got to start playing. He's got to go in the park. He's got to do what he's good at and scoring goals. But it just seems to get worse and worse for him.
Yeah, and it's a rare situation. I must admit, somebody was sending me a text from the West Ham game when he came on and said, you'll never believe it, he says, the Celtic fans are booing Lee Griffiths. And I thought, well, there you are. That's the straw that's broken the camel's back on this whole issue with them. They're just, I think they've been taken too far down the road this time and thinking, well, wait a minute, what is his contribution over the last 2 or 3 years? I think people are starting to look at the stats rather than this gimmick of tying scarves around the post, trying to annoy people. It's all about what are you doing on the park? What's your contribution? It was slight last season, and I think it cost them dearly. And I think some Celtic fans have had enough of it. Ange Postecoglou, on the other hand, mentioned today at the press conference ahead of the game that he thinks he's got a big job trying to win Celtic fans back.
For the most part, I think, Lee's still got a positive response from the crowd because they acknowledge the fact that he's had a very good career at Celtic and has contributed. And if there are people who express dissatisfaction, well, Yeah, it's up to him to show with his performances and the way he goes about things that I'm sure he can win them back very quickly.
Oh, he's got a big job, Davy.
Well, he has, and I think the thing is that, until Ruffy played with Celtic, I was at Rangers, and until you go to the club, you can look from the outside and want in, but then you realise you've got a huge, responsibility from the fans, and, fans can turn very, very quickly, as you know. They want their team to succeed, but they will not accept second best. So I think it's really difficult for me to say it's a critical, stage in Celtic's history, but it is, because Rangers a few years ago went through it when Pedro Coutinho came in, and that didn't last long and had to be sorted. So if he gets over this tie tomorrow night, that's a start, and then what they have to do is hit the ground running. I believe it's against Hearts on Saturday. If they don't, then the pressure becomes on them very, very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, Ruffy. I mean, I'm going to try and put a bit of balance and calmness to the whole situation here, because I can remember Wim Jansen losing his first 2 games as Celtic manager, and they were calling for his head on the phone and sack him. He doesn't know what he's doing. This guy has got to. He's come from another country like Wim Jansen. He's basically come into an organisation who's going through a transitional period, and he's also frustrated by the fact he can't get players in as quick as he would like. I mean, I think Carl Starfelt might play against Hearts on Saturday evening, but there's no doubt this is not his team. This is not what he wants, so you've got to cut him some slack.
I think he's already laid the ground rules. If they get beat, it's not his fault. I think he's laid it out there. If we don't win this game, it's not my fault. You brought me in late. You've not given me enough time to get players, and I think he's trying to buy everybody into it. Right, this year Champions League's a write-off. They drop into Europa, don't they?
Yeah.
I think he's trying to convince everybody now. Give us a month. If we drop it, if I'm not saying they will, give me a month to get my players in. And then we'll be a better thing that we can deal with. But I think he's already been to press conference, and I think he is.
Yeah.
Assuming
they don't drop into the Europa with this one, Ruffy. This is all or nothing.
Yeah.
They've got to get past this tie.
One, yep.
And then it's more than likely PSV waiting, and they'll be. I think they've spent something like 40 million in the last few weeks on players. So suddenly you're starting to see what level you're dealing with here, Davey.
Yeah, well, I think so. And I think the other things, one of the problems he's going to have is that if you're an agent and basically, your player has been targeted by Celtic, the money goes up because you realise that they might be desperate. They need to bring up players in. So the players will inevitably cost them a wee bit more than it would have done 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And that's something that has to be built into the equation as well.
Yeah, and of course the other thing, listen, Celtic fans would love to win the league back, but there are Celtic fans out there who've had a constant feed of European football. And if you listen to the manager and the captain, Callum McGregor, they reckon and they know that it's so important to the supporters.
At Celtic, regardless of transition period or not, the players are tasked to win and win well. So, that expectation's never going to change. I get that people are kind of saying it's transitional and everything else, and probably giving us a bit of leeway. But if we have that mentality within the group, then we won't achieve anything.
Look, European football's it's important. It's a priority for the club. Every year it's one of the main priorities, and this year's no different. As you said, we are in a transition, but you don't just discount things because of your current circumstances.
Yeah, so both of them putting a brave face on it. They're mentioning the word transition. The transition has been created by the madness of what's gone on over the last year, Ruffy.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Right for the start, right for the goalkeeping carry on. They went on for months and months, and everything that went with that, and then obviously selling players, Frimpong going and players leaving here and players being injured. And at that time, Celtic supporters were saying, well, why are we not replacing them? We can't replace them till a manager comes in, because it's got to be his players. And as we all know, they've left it very, very late. So By all accounts, I mean, you were at the game, by all accounts, people are saying that they were good enough to beat them. You know, but they never weren't they good enough to beat them at Parkgate. So how are you going to be really, you know, secure that you're going to go there and beat them while there?
Yeah, but if you're a manager, Davey, I mean, honestly, I understand the way he wants to play, and he's telling them to play a certain way. He wants to play a high press, wants to work hard when they're not on the ball. Then he wants them to play from the back, right? Now, if you've got players in that back line that are not the players you know are going to be starting for you in the next month, suddenly they're playing from the back. Then he's got a player who decides, I'm not only not a centre half, but I think after picking up a yellow card, I'm going to poke the guy in the head and hope the referee lets me away with it. Suddenly he's down to 10 men. The whole thing, you know, now is a situation where they could have been 2-0 up. I watched the game and I thought there are a couple of nice positives to take from it, but it's not his team, and there are 2 players that want away, and a number of them that I think are not good enough.
Well, I think the other things, just going back to, he wants them to play this way. You know, part of the thing is you know, when a manager wants to play a certain style, then he has to get players, rather than, you know, some managers that fail say, right, oh, he looks a good player, but does he fit into your system?
Yeah.
So that's it. You can play whatever way you want, but unless you get players that will fit in your system, you're not going to do it. So the smart move for me would keep that in the back burner, play with who you've got, play with the strengths of the players you've got within a style within your team, and get that and get over that wee period, and then start to bring in your style of play, because, you know, it's we've both been at clubs. Well, it's all right for him because he was in goal, so his style of play was just the same. Woo!
It's the thing. The modern that you're saying playing for the back. I don't know if you've noticed now that all the teams know that teams want to play for the back. So the 2 centre halves go wide, right, and the goalkeeper's got the ball.
Yeah.
And the 2 strikers just cover the ball going to thing. But
No.
if you're playing in the Euros and the goalkeeper gives it to the centre half on the 6-yard line, and he's comfortable on the ball, it's fantastic. But our game at the weekend, and we were doing it. And see if you give the ball to somebody like 8 yards out and there's 2 strikers coming in, you're like that.
The panic, I know.
You're like that, what are you going to do?
But to be perfectly honest with you, Davey, if I'm a Paris Saint-Germain fan and I'm looking over the last decade and I think, here's Verratti, he's got 3 players around him and he's got it in his own 6-yard line, I'm quite happy.
Yeah.
Because the wee boy playing for Italy was magnificent, but not this team. This team is going through that transition that managers mentioned there, and I mean, honestly, they've created their own problems, but nevertheless, I meant to ask you, do you like the fact that there's now no away goals rule?
I do. I think it's a good thing, you know, because I've been put out of Europe a few times where it was the away goals that swung it. And, you know, I think the thing is that, you know, it was always a thing, you know, don't concede when you go away, but it's try and snatch one.
Yeah.
Try and but that, I think what's happened is, and particularly with the league's set up in the Champions League, when you're actually into the group stages, is the fact that teams go and play away from home the same as they play at home. But, you know, in our day, your home was go and build up as many goals as possible. Don't concede because you've got a chance going away, and vice versa. So I think it's quite a good thing, because it'll make play a lot better and a lot more open.
Yeah, I have my doubts about tomorrow night. You know, Ange Postecoglou says Michelin, you know, they've had 8 days to get it better again. They'll be better prepared this time around. I don't know, Ruffy. I think this is massive for him, because we're obviously going to talk about the other clubs in Scottish football who are playing in Europe, and some of the other stories that are coming out. He's mentioned he's close to getting a right back in for them, Aurelio Buta from Antwerp. You know, and he'll have 3 or 4 other players that he'll want to get in. He's got Dermot Desmond apparently with his hand on the till, trying to force through some of the deals. So, but this game is massive for him.
This is the big one.
Can he win it?
Yeah, I think he can win it.
Will he win it? Here's a better one.
I'm going to go for it. But for midfield, as soon as that team's announced tomorrow night, Celtic supporters are going to look at it. The midfield's going to be okay. Up front with Edward and whatever he plays is okay.
Yeah.
But as soon as you look at the 4 at the back and whatever goalkeeper's in, then you start to panic. Then it's a panic station.
Don't give them the ball.
The goalkeeper hasn't made a decent save yet.
Yeah.
And I think it's particularly unfair for the 2 young centre halves if they're thrown into this game. It's a massive game for them, and we don't know what the fullbacks are going to be. So that's the biggest problem.
Yeah.
Everybody was saying, can they get through this 90 minutes with that defence before it gets reinforced.
Well, I'm not asking you for a compliment for him, but if you were playing in front of Ruffy, you're thinking, okay, good keeper.
Absolutely.
If you play in front of Barkas, I don't know what the back's force thinking.
Best shot stopper ever.
Yeah.
Ask him to come for a cross.
He wouldn't come. That wasn't his job. That's not his job, Davey.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant.
You've not got your nose straight.
But get back to the Celtic thing. I'm in Ruffy's camp. I think they can get. I think it's going to be maybe 0-0, extra time and penalties. You know, imagine if it
Do you
goes
think
to
this
that.
goalie can save penalties?
So I think it's going to be tight. Celtic just need to keep it tight, and then, you know, irrespective of the thing we spoke about, home and away, you're under a certain amount of pressure to win at home, aren't you? So the fans tend to get in your back, and I don't know how many is going to be in Denmark. I think probably from Denmark, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think that from what I saw in the Euros, there's going to be a significant crowd there.
Yeah.
So they'll be on trying to get the team moving, but also if they don't score early and they don't do this, it's the same old premise that the pressure on their players.
And everybody's having, well, we all are not having a go at the goalkeeper, but we're not like confident on him. But this is the kind of games where it could turn for him.
Yeah.
This is the kind of game where he could be in and make the match-winning save, and then everybody gets behind him. His confidence grows. It's not the first time when a goalkeeper, you know, is getting slaughtered, and all of a sudden he's the match winner.
Yeah, but
He needs to do it.
no, but the problem there, Ruffy, it's a great line from Ruffy, but you need to see something in a goalkeeper that suggests he's capable of it. No harm to the boy, but I just don't think he is Celtic class. It's as simple as that, and I don't see him turning it around. I hope he's not the problem tomorrow night. I hope, as Davey mentioned there, go there, keep it tight, get the goal, and then from there, you know, be sensible about it and just get the job done. Fingers crossed Celtic do indeed get the job done. I don't think it'll be too far away from the side that get hammered by West Ham at the weekend. There might be the odd one tweak here and there, but nevertheless, big job for Celtic. You can give us your thoughts on it. Incidentally, if you want to give us your thoughts on football throughout the season, it's fairly straightforward. Basically, all you have to do is download the PLZ Soccer app. There's a little section called Submission. Click on it. Record yourself and then upload it, and it'll drop in, and we'll pick the best of them, and we'll be picking out some that'll be winning some fantastic prizes. So we'd love to hear from you. You can contribute to the show as well, and as we always say at the start of this season, we are exclusively on YouTube and PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel, so you can subscribe to us as well. We hope you do that. Listen, if it's a little bit of worry and concern over at the Celtic camp and the Rangers camp, you know, it's like the old Air Canada advert. It's party time. Nobody wants to get off the plane. Everything's great.
Well, they'd obviously everything in place, and it's been a rebuilding job at Rangers, and that will give them significant confidence about winning the league, because it tends to go in that kind of cycle. You know, once you get on, you know, the winning habit, it becomes 3 and it becomes 4 and things like that.
Yeah.
Because you're always chasing. But I think Rangers are in a good position just now. You know, by all accounts, the players they've signed have added value to the team. Morelos is another thing. I think probably, you know, if they do get the money that they're talking about for him, would they take it? Probably, because I think they've got some decent players.
Yeah. Porto still sniffing. He's on obviously because he was involved in Copa America, he's got an extended holiday. But it's got to be it's the longest transfer saga of all time. Is he going? Will he stay? Even Steven Gerrard says he doesn't know what's going to happen.
Well, I think the thing is you know about football, it's that when the stories appeared, someone puts them in the paper, you know, and I'm sure that his agent wouldn't be so, you know, blasé to do that, but it formulates a lot of interest, and you know, and whilst there's one club particularly interesting, he's maybe trying to stimulate other clubs to come in, because ultimately that would work for Rangers if you 2 or 3 clubs want to sign him.
Yeah.
Is there any photos of them being on holiday in Portugal now?
There's none yet, but don't rule it out, Ruffy. Of course, the other thing that happens in the background, as you know, especially from a CEO point of view, is, you know, everybody talks about, he could bring in 7, 8, 10 million, whatever. And then in the background, the other big job I always think is the most important one is offloading what I call the players who are never going to play for Rangers again, or at least getting some money for players that they brought in that was a mistake. I mean, Greg Stewart's gone because obviously he wasn't good enough to play for Rangers. George Edmondson's joined Ipswich Town for a deal just under $1 million. So suddenly you're starting to scrape back some money that goes into the kitty.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing is that the Rangers, you know, we know the years they went through of, you know, like being supported by, you know, the board members putting money in to make sure that it kept going and had a chance. They're now, I don't quite think they'll want to reap back what they've invested, because they'll never get that back.
No.
But, you know, I think one of the things that Stephen Gerrard seems to do, he's got an understanding of how clubs operate. And he's not going to be, you know, basically protective of players that could maybe move on. And he's got a good idea of how he wants to play, and he brings back to this thing about playing in a system and bring in players that can play in that system.
Rangers are no different from any other club, Celtic,
No,
whoever.
absolutely.
There's a board meeting at the beginning of the season, and there's finances gets discussed, and there's this side it and that side it, profit and loss. Not that I'm into any of that.
Yeah.
I just sit there.
Oh, I'd
you
love
know.
to be at a meeting
No, I'll
just
tell you,
watching you in the board
first,
meeting.
my very first board meeting, and Jerry came in and he handed out all the paraphernalia, the profit and loss, and
The
everything,
minutes.
and the sheets and everything, and the graphs, right? So Jerry's talking about the graphs. If you look at the graph here, it's pointing up here, and this one's pointing down there. For 15 minutes, I was looking at it, going, "I've got this upside down." But Rangers are no different.
No.
They've got a finance there. They have to monitor for the supporters. They've got a profit and loss. They can't be seen to be going. But we're not privy to what's happening. We're not privy to who's putting what money in and who wants their money back and when they want it back and all that kind of stuff. So
You're right, Ruff. It happens in every boardroom. The main issue, or obviously the glaring issue, is fans into ground, because that's where the big revenue comes from.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of clubs will have built in that they'll have full houses at a certain time, whenever that's going to be. And they don't do that on, you know, up in the air. They get some inside information from the government.
Yeah.
If this happens, then all the crowds will come in, and you know.
Am I being too optimistic, thinking maybe the end of August?
I think you're probably talking about. I think you're probably talking about September. That's just my own view, just with looking at the way things have gone. But I was, you know, when I was still involved in the football side of it, I called very early on for some kind of, you know, passport that showed that you had, or either an app that showed that you had been vaccinated, and also that you'd had a negative test.
Yeah.
And I think they've dragged their heels a wee bit on that.
You know today that they're actually, the Scottish Government is considering you've got to prove that you've had the 2 jags.
Well, when was I last involved in that? It was months and months and months ago, and that was one of the things I suggested, simply because you know it's coming, and there was obviously, you know, people from the government had thought, well, that is civil liberties, you know, if someone doesn't have a jag, why would depriving them of this and all this kind of stuff. But you know, I think that, you know, people want to go to football to be protected. They want to go to concerts to be protected. And if you're standing with someone that you know has had a test and has had the jags and has the certification, it's filled in the app, etc., then you're a bit more comfortable.
Yeah.
Because, you know, this has been a horrendous time for clubs, as it has been for the whole population of the world.
I think the biggest argument for the clubs are the attendances. How are you getting 4,000 and we're only getting 2,000? How are you getting 18,000 and we're only getting that? That's a thing that has to be nailed, you know. And I know there's a lot of things going behind the scene with health and all that, and where the teams are and what particular district they're in, but there's a lot of people really annoyed.
Oh, listen, never mind the logic of how they come to a certain figure, which has annoyed a lot of people along the way. You know, you only have to look at the information, how we've actually dealt with it over a longer period of time to know that it must be difficult for the clubs to suddenly try and explain to the fans, you're allowed 2,000. Like, for example, the news just came out, Hibs will be allowed 2,000 fans for the game against Motherwell at the weekend. So, you know, they're delighted to get the 2,000. Should there be more? Who knows? But that's the agreement they've come to with the council for the away support. So we'll see 2,000 Hibs fans at the Motherwell game, which is fantastic. Hopefully, as Davey mentioned, their start of September, whether it's a passport. Some people will, feel as if it's infringing on their civil liberties, but nevertheless, whatever it takes to get us back to some kind of normal, then roll on. But fingers crossed we get there, people get the money in, and as you guys were talking about there, as far as Rangers are concerned, they'll be offloading, pulling in money. They might sell one of the big players, and then Steven Gerrard will have a list of targets that he wants to try and retain the title. Incidentally, we've been mentioning all the way through since we started, we'll be giving away some fantastic prizes. Today, just behind Ruffy there, Davey will remember this, bit of a retro top, Sampdoria. There is a name on the back of it. If you want to, first of all, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and then underneath the programme today, just put it in, fill it in. Who do you think the name on the back of the shirt is? And we'll be picking out a lucky winner on Friday. And our reporter Gabriel Antoniazzi has looked into all the shirts that are for sale in the Scottish Premiership. How much is it costing to kit your kids out? How much is it costing if you wanted to kit yourself out? I don't know too many older men now who buy the shorts and the socks.
Well,
but there is it's a hefty price, David.
Well, I was commentating at one of the Kilmarnock games for Kilmarnock TV last week, and the amount of people that had strips on, because that was the first time back. But what Kilmarnock did was they cut the prices and things, which I thought was a great gesture. So you're right. But that's the badge, isn't it? You wear whatever.
Yeah.
You wear the colours, and Ruffy and I used to wear the colours at Partick Thistle, and we wore them with pride.
Yeah, have you still got your Partick Thistle top somewhere?
I've got it somewhere, but I think it's buried away somewhere with blue mould on it.
Yeah.
We've got a cracking away strip this year.
You happy with it?
I'm really happy. It's on the theme of the old Germany strip.
Oh, right.
With the red and black sort of a.
Yep, remember it.
It looks,
yeah.
it looks magnificent. Not on the whole, it's obviously a more modern design, but
right.
It looks like the Germany away strip.
You'd
the
be
fans have
modelling
really
it?
bought in.
Will you be modelling it, Ruffy?
And I remember when I was at Celtic, Umbro were sponsoring Celtic at the time. I remember pre-season we walked into the dressing room and there was these 6, 7, 8 variations of Celtic strips.
Yeah.
And the boy was saying to Big Roy, "Now what do you think?" And quite like that one, quite that one, quite that one. Big Billy came in, they went, "Take them away. Don't like any of them. Take them away." What was that? Where was that?
Bring the hoops back in.
We've worked on this. I don't care, I don't like them. Take them away.
Well, I have to say, I've had a look at a few of them. I really like the Livingston away top. It reminds me of, because we were poor in our area, we get my mum to make a strip for us, Davy, with the band right across it, And
What was that, the Peru game?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's like that, by the way. But the Livingston top, the away top, is actually really good. But anyway, back to the point. Gabriel's looked into it. He's got the cost. And next week on the programme, we'll be giving away a top of your favourite team. As simple as that. You can win one of the tops from your favourite team all through next week. All you have to do is subscribe to the YouTube channel and we'll tell you how you can just basically post something below each programme each night and you could win yourself the top from your favourite team. But yep, it's a hefty price you have to pay, some of them as much as £100, and you're not getting the shorts and the socks all in for £100, but Gabriel's going to open it all out for us. We've got a couple of things I want to get your thoughts on, lads. Obviously we want to see if Celtic can do well. There are other clubs involved. Hibs against Santa Coloma, Aberdeen in a good position against Hacken. Of course, St Johnstone waiting and wondering. It looks like they're going to be facing Galatasaray. And the news coming out is that they will be actually able to go to Turkey, even though it's on the red list. They'll be able to go and play that game and play Galatasaray back at McDermott Park because of some kind of agreement in place. They won't have to play it at a neutral venue. So that's good news as well. Another little thing that came up, Davey, and I know you'll be well aware of this, St Mirren announced today that that's them fan ownership complete. It's something that a lot of clubs like to go down that route now, but St Mirren have managed to do it.
Yeah, all credit to him. I know Tony Fitzpatrick very well, and I think that He's been a great supporter of that, so he's been working with a general manager below him. He's the chief executive, obviously, who's from the fans group, and the relationship's been working well. So, you know, in the face of it, things should not change. And that's what I think, you know, fans have to remember, you know, that you've got an executive running the club, and the worst thing you can do is interfere with it, you know.
Yeah, brilliantly put. You know, you've got to get to a situation. I always laughed at times, not laughing at the person who was suggesting it, but I was laughing at the club. Celtic at times would look and say, "We've got fans on the board. We don't need another one." Whereas the Celtic fans wanted a representative on there, and I used to like just snigger and think, you know, no matter how hard the Celtic fans try to get somebody on, they always discount it on the board. Is it a good thing for you, Robbie? Is it a bad thing?
Well, we don't know yet. You know, we're obviously in the process of doing it. Colin Weir's last wishes were that he wants a fan-based club. But the problem is, how do you operate it? You know, how does it work? How does it actually work? You know, and I thought a lot of clubs think of the idea, and I'm not saying supporters don't really realise what goes on behind the scenes at a club. I mean, my eyes have been opened in the last year or two, what actually goes on, what you have to do. And to think that 6 fans would come in, and I'm sure some of them will be businessmen and they will know how, but they'll get a shock. They'll get a shock of what, because you can't come in for 5 or 6 years and leave thinking you've got to leave the place in a good place. So I think it's how in tandem they work with the board, well, you know, and what the demands are going to be. And I think they've got to prove that they are the people who should be on it. You know, I think that's the biggest thing.
Well, the best experience I had of the fans getting involved in the club was at Dundee when I was chief executive there. 4 directors, and one of them was the fans representative, George Knight, who from the start knew exactly what his place was within the organisation. He had a quarter share with, or say within it, so we had a voting structure, so he had that. But from the start, he said to the fans, D for Life, who'd saved the club, because I went to them after they'd come out of administration to try and restructure it. But George had said to the fans, and the representative of the fans was expected to call for the fans' input, and which he did, but he quite clearly from the offset said to them, there are things I cannot discuss. There are things that are commercially sensitive, and they accepted that. But what I used to do is, I used to go to the D for Life meeting every month, and I could tell them wee bits that they wanted to hear, and it worked a dream, an absolute dream. So it can work. I really think it can.
I'm not saying it can't work. I think it's just debatable how it works for the best interest of the club in the long term. You might get somebody coming in saying, well, let's sell it to somebody. You know, let's do this, do that, and it might not be the best interest. The bottom line is, it's got to be for the best interest of the club.
Absolutely.
Just before we go, Davey, you mentioned that you're out of football now. Is there a desire to get back in, or is this new job, is this something that's getting you excited?
Well, I'd had a long time in football, and I think, you know, with the Morton situation, you know, again, it was a fans group coming in, and, you know, I didn't want to stand in their way. So decent people that want the best for the club. So, you know, I stepped aside, which was fine. And I wish them every success in you know, in getting the club into where they want to get it. But, you know, I was working 70 hours a week, 7 days a week, for a significant amount of time. What I wanted to hang on was to get them through COVID, to make sure that the club were still in existence, which I did. So I walked away with my head held high. I'm now working as a managing director. I did some consultancy work for a company called ZLX that do a lot of research and development tax grants and credits for business through the government, and I've now started introducing that into football clubs. So I'm actually benefiting football clubs far better than I did as a chief executive, because they're starting to get money from it. So Partick Thistle are a classic example of, you know, that they do R&D without thinking about it. And what it is actually, in football you try and up your game all the time.
Yeah.
We've been using innovation and changing this and tweaking that to try and get to perfection. And for years, no one benefited from that. But the government, to their credit, have invested billions of pounds into this scheme, and it's on the statute to 2032. So they want to generate growth within business. So football clubs are starting to benefit from them because I can understand exactly where their innovation is.
Yeah.
So we're recently just give a significant check to a Scottish club. We've been doing some work in England, so it's great because it keeps me involved in the football side, and you're putting something back, if you like.
Brilliant. Well, I've got a few contacts at Thistle. I'll see what I can get somebody to chat to you. That'd be great, you know.
Sure, Jerry Britton will be on the phone. Once he's seen this tonight, he'll be on the phone. How much can I get?
As soon as you mentioned big check there, Ruffy's eyes just lit up. Anyway, listen, as ever, when you come on this programme, Davey, I love talking to you because you talk a lot of sense about the game, having played it as well, at a top level. And, of course, every time I look at your LinkedIn, I actually think, I'm really lazy. Davey's doing this. He's doing that job. I need to get my finger out, Ruffy. I sent him a text the other day, and I said, "You're beginning to make me look as if I don't care about my job." He's doing.
Skills are transferable. That's a big thing. If you do things properly, you can get results.
Brilliant. Hey, it's the best way to leave this programme. We'll find out exactly if we're going to get results from the Scottish clubs. We'll talk in depth about the games involving Aberdeen and Hibs, certainly looking good for them over the course of the next 72 hours. Hopefully we're talking about not only Aberdeen and Hibs, but Celtic through there and starting to look optimistically towards St Johnstone and Rangers' involvement in Europe. But this weekend coming up is massive for us. We want to enjoy the football. Are you looking forward to getting back to it, Davey, as far as the Premiership starting again? I mean, I know we want fans in, but just getting football back again.
No, absolutely. And I think the big thing is, I think clubs have to do a wee bit more. I think they have to forward think and think when they can get a capacity crowd, sell out the crowd. Sell out the ground, get your capacity. I don't know what Thistle's capacity is, 10,000 or something like that. Try and get 10,000 in, and you have to be a wee bit more, economical with what you're charging to ensure that people come. But I reckon that fans are desperate to get into clubs, and I think if clubs do it properly, they could all have full houses. So that should be a campaign to get full houses in each club when we're able to do that.
Yeah, here. You speak a lot of sense. Listen, don't forget the competition. Chance for you to win that retro top there from Sampdoria. What's the name on the back of it? Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'd love to have you as part of the football family. As ever, we've been growing. The figures for last season were absolutely fantastic, down to you guys, which is why we're here again for a 10th season. We're in the west of Scotland, broadcasting, talking about all of Scottish football, and I know quite a few of you have said, who gets 10 in a row in the west of Scotland? No, nobody does, Ruffy, but we've managed 10. I can't believe it. We're still together in 10 years, Ruffy.
Yeah, let's hope there's another 10.
As good as I come in, Peter, I saw your private registration, 10 AR.
Can you imagine it, Ruffy? It'd be up in bricks within about 2 minutes. Anyway, apart from anything else, I leave you with that thought as I get into the witness protection scheme. Thanks to David McKinnon, thanks to Ruffy, and for myself, Peter Martin. Join us at 4 o'clock tomorrow if you can, but don't forget tonight at 7 o'clock we'll be releasing that one-to-one I had with Ali Dawson. Rest in peace, and our thoughts and prayers go to his family and friends. But from everybody here on the Football Show, thanks for watching and listening.